The Regulation F ladder has been live for a couple of weeks now, and I want to talk about some of the best new/returning Pokemon and why they are good and how to use them. So over the last couple of weeks, your boy has been studying basically every online tour that has gone on, having a look at what ones are doing good, what ones aren't doing so good, and all that kind of stuff. I'm kind of just compiling the information, trying to, test it all myself as well, see what kind of sets I think work for me, what sets don't, and all that good stuff. And so today, we're going to talk about it, yeah? So the first one here is one of the new mons, and that is Raging Bolt. So one of the really cool things about Raging Bolt is this is just an absolute powerhouse of a mon, right? It has 137 base special attack, which is absolutely absurd, and it has a new signature move being Thunderclap. Now, I have spoken about this mon a bit in the past, and I am very, very high on this one, right? So I think there are a bunch of different ways you can run Raging Bolt. One, I think the Terra Electric set is really, really good, especially if you're running it with something like, say, Safety Goggles. Because when you're running Safety Goggles, right, it gives you obviously, a better matchup into Amoonguss, because it gives you just another one that's immune to spores. It also gives you something so you can't be redirected, right? And one of the biggest reasons really why I like not being able to be redirected is because for a Pokemon like Urshifu, for example, that doesn't want to get Thunderclapped, normally the best way around, not getting Thunderclapped is having something like, a redirection one next to it. And normally they are Amoonguss or Ogerpon Water, right? Ogerpon Water does not want to eat a T-Bolt from this mon. And if you have Amoonguss, next to it, then this mon just completely ignores it. Because of that, I do really, really like the Safety Goggles set. Normally when I run something like Safety Goggles, it's like T-Bolt, Thunderclap. Your choice of a Dragon Stab, Draco Meteor or Dragon Pulse are both like really, really good. And then just something as simple as Protect, right? In terms of the EVs, I'm a huge fan of just hitting the last bump here being that 180 mark. This just allows you to hit so damn hard, and it's like really, really insanely good. And then in terms of the spreads, in terms of the speed/defensive spreads, this always comes down to how your team, I guess, is kind of built in a sense, right? So personally, I like to run it a lot on Tailwind, so I normally run to around that 112 mark. If you wanted, you could honestly run it a bit faster. But for me, normally 112 is fine, and I just, I split like go something like that. Yeah, that's, in my opinion, pretty damn good, right? And again, for a set like this, your common partners are always going to be your Tailwind setters, right? Your Tornadoes, your Whimsicotts. It also just really likes being potentially in Sun as well. Icy Wind Abuse is also really good. I also really love pairing this with like Speed Booster, Icy Wind Flutter Mane. It's also really good with Iron Bundle as well. Another one I've tested this, a little bit with. Other sets you can run on this one though that I also really, really enjoy is actually the Leftovers set. So in the past, I was a huge fan of, like Golden Go plus Rillaboom, right? And I feel like this mon functions very, very similar, right? But instead of going for obviously, a nasty plot here, you've got Calm Mind, right? So you go for something like this where you go like, Thunderclap, Calm Mind, you're probably going Dragon Pulse in this slot. You could run T-Bolt in that slot as well. But really the main reason we run Dragon Pulse is because, Landorus Therian is really, really good right now. And just having a move that like at +1 can absolutely nuke it is like very, very important in my opinion. When I do run lefties though, I'm a huge fan of going Terra Grass. Just because, again, you're already really weak to Landorus Therian, and I think this just kind of really helps patch up that weakness. But this is like really, really good. Common partners with this are one, Rillaboom. I love Rillaboom just because lefties plus grassy terrain is just like stupid, especially on a mon with such high HP, right? Like if you've got a HP stat that's like this insanely high, all of a sudden, you're just getting like a ridiculous amount of HP back every turn, right? You're between lefties, grassy terrain, then you protect, get it back again. You've got 24% of your health back, or I don't think it's 24%, is it? You get whatever it is. You get like 1/16, so would that be like 2/16, which is 1/8. So you get 1/8 of your health back each turn. So then if you protect, you get like a quarter. Yeah, so yeah, it's about a quarter. Yeah, so it's about 24%, I think. I think that's the math. I'm doing quick math off the top of my head here, so that is obviously like, yeah, pretty damn good. When I'm running the Calm Mind set though, this is really, really team dependent. I do think you don't have to invest that much in speed, and perhaps investing in bulk is better. Also, this mon too, when you're running like Calm Mind, really likes obviously Intimidate mons, whether that be like Incin. I think Incin is really good with this. I think like Incin Rilla plus like Raging Bolt is like a fantastic core. In terms of EVs, it really comes down to what you want. You can drop this down to like that 100 benchmark there, and then kind of just, dump into the defensive investment here. Now, I actually don't remember off top of my head exactly what you want on this. Actually, no, the 224 should be correct, yeah? Because I'm pretty sure 208 was the bump on... I'm pretty sure 208 is the bump actually on Annihilate. So 224 is actually probably what you want, yeah. So something like that's honestly probably fine. If you're playing Calm Mind, honestly, you could just do something like this. Like, use that as like to bulk up, your special defense. Obviously, Calm Mind also gets you, your special attack up, and then yeah, if you wanted to run this down a little bit, maybe chuck a bit of speed, find whatever speed tier works for you. It really depends on the team, but in my opinion, they are the two best sets. I have seen like Assault Vest Snarl as well, which I think isn't too bad. I won't go into that set though because I haven't really tested it at all. I've also seen like Life Orb and stuff, which I don't think is fantastic. But yeah, look, this one, it's fantastic. It puts on so much pressure, it does a lot of damage, and really like you're best pairing it with either like Tailwind Hyper Offense. I think Sun is really good. And you know, finally, as I said, like those more balanced setup cores, right, where you pair it with like the Rilla, the Incin, and you probably pair it with another setup mon, whether that be something like a Registeel, and kind of just, you know, like kind of rely on like a setup and then just like, you know, use your double fake out, you know, intimidate, parting shot, you know, just cycling. And yeah, I think it's really, really good. Now, the next one I want to touch on here is actually another dragon that is coming up, and that is actually Lidos. Now, Lidos is like super, super interesting because I started seeing people play this, and I'm like, why the hell would people play Lidos, right? But then you start thinking about like why people are actually playing Lidos, right? And a big one too. So if I actually pull up the Tommy Tuesdays here, right? So if we have a look, Incin, you know, it's not like a great matchup for Lidos. Neither is like, you know, Fluttermane. They're both kind of like, you know, sure you can eat a Blitz. You don't really want to eat anything from Fluttermane, so that's like not the greatest. But then like you look at Urshifu, right? This is the one that wants to hit you with water moves and it wants to hit you with fighting moves. Lidos resists both of them. Rillaboom wants to hit you with a, you know, wants to hit you with grass moves, or, you know, potentially high horsepower, or U-turn, right? U-turn, you know, Latias doesn't appreciate, but obviously, you know, Grassy Glide, Wood Hammer, you eat them, and, you know, you go for an item like Rocky Helmet, for example, which is, like, very common, and you don't really care, especially because, like, Helmet plus Recover, yeah, you kind of just, like, don't care, you kind of, like, win those. You look at Tornadus is, like, whatever, right? It's the, you know, it's another Tailwind setter, you know, which Latios is as well, but Lati obviously does not have priority, but it's more of, like, a balanced Tailwind setter. Lander can't hit you with Earth Powers at all, because your ability is, you know, Levitate here, and this one, too, being a Levitator, absolutely loves Terra Poison, and because of that, you know, Lander essentially does not touch this thing, right? Because you kind of normally just want to, like, you know, dump into your HP. You've got this stupidly high special defense stat, man, like, that's so good, and all of a sudden, Lander is Theory and can't touch you. Ogre Pawns, none of the Ogre Pawns can touch you because you're a dragon type. You know, Raging Bolt, like, yeah, sure, it can use a dragon move on you, but a lot of the time they want to use their electric moves, right, which you can't really do. Amoonguss can definitely be kind of annoying, but you can actually EV to, you know, two-shot most Amoongusses. You know, doesn't love Gambit or Power, obviously. The Wake matchup is, you know, probably slightly Wake favored. But yeah, really, it's these, like, main ones up here that we're talking about, right? It's like the Urshis, the Rillas, the Ogres, the Landos, like, some of these like really, really top threat mons. Even Entei is another mon that we're going to touch on later that is like on the rise. And yeah, it doesn't really care about that. Same with Iron Hands. Like if Iron Hands stocks were already down because of Incin, and now Latios just makes it even worse, right? Funny enough, I'll throw this in here too, guys. I actually think Dark Urshifu is a legit sleeper threat right now. I do not think this one's getting enough play. I saw one of these like Banded Terra Dark on like Tailwind. It absolutely destroys a lot of the top threats. If they don't have like, you know, Incin ready to go, it actually feels really, really good. But yeah, basically Latios, this set is like very, very simple, right? So the moves you're always going to have, you're going to have like a cover, you're going to have Tailwind, and then you're always going to have Mist Ball. Mist Ball is its, you know, signature move here. This is fantastic, especially too, because if you do get this onto things like Fluttermane, right? If you ever get that special attack drop onto a special attacker, and it's like, it's a 50% chance, that's really freaking high. All of a sudden, dude, they're doing like no damage, especially if you go like Terra Poison and then like, you know, you hit, you know, you hit the Fluttermane with the Mist Ball, you know, they get -1, then you recover up, all of a sudden they're like -1, you're like 80% HP. It's like really, really sick. And then the last move here, honestly, a lot of different options you can go for, right? There's like Ice Beam, which I think is really good. Draco Meteor is like another option as well. What's it called? Dragon Pulse, obviously, is also like really, really good. I kind of want to have a look at what other special moves, because they're really the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Icy Wind also probably isn't a bad shout either. But yeah, that's really about it. I do personally really like Ice Beam, just because like, and again, it always comes down to your team, right? At the end of the day, it's super team dependent. If your team is weak to Landorus Incarnate and this is your answer to it, obviously go the Ice Beam. If your team, you know, obviously is struggling, you know, maybe with just, you know, Raging Bolt, right? Then maybe go Draco Meteor. But I think a really cool set, I'll kind of like try to explain this to you guys the best I can. So there was a specific Amoonguss set where I believe 60 special attack with a Mist Bowl, 2 shots if they're not Citrus Berry. If they are Citrus Berry, it's way too hard to basically get the 2 shot on it, especially too because a lot of the time they are, you know, like max HP with quite a bit of, you know, SPDEF investment. So I do really, really like that. And then I kind of like just split these here. The reason I like 32 is because a lot of supportive Ogre Pawns are going for 31. If you did want to speed creep him, you could probably look to go somewhere between like 36 to 38, but I also really enjoy hitting that bump number. So one of the sets I did actually run was something like this originally, and then we go Bold Nature, because again, you just want this to be like physically as defensive as possible. So that is one set I have run in the past, but I was also just a huge fan of just like splitting these defense points here and even just going 34, because again, I'm a sucker for you know, even EVs. Anyone who ever watches me EV spread do my EVs, I love when they're even, I hate when they're odd. So something like that to me is like really, really nice. But yeah, this one is like fantastic, dude. Like I think its set is very simple. There's not really much reason to, you know, go a different way just yet. But Lidos is like such a super sick anti-meta mon, dude. It's a good balance mon that has tailwind. You know, it has really good recovery. It's super bulky, especially on the special end. And then like it just allows you to pump into defense. In terms of mons this guy wants to play with, it really enjoys obviously playing in those balance cores, right? The Incins, the Rillabooms, you know, even playing with like its own lander as Therian, I think is really solid. Basically, it wants to play with mons that like want to play on balance, but also enjoy tailwind. And this is just, it's sick. It's such a good anti-meta mon right now. Now, the next one we're going to touch on here is actually a mon that has kind of been taking over the meta as of late, and that is Ente. Basically, if anyone didn't see, you know, the team that did win the Tommy Tuesdays, I will pull this up here, just because I have it ready to go. Darts, he won the Tommy Tuesday 700 plus player tournament here, and he did it on the back of an Ente, and this Ente was really sick. I actually did, you know, test this team, so if that is something you're interested in, guys, go obviously check out the, you know, the last video, because we did, you know, sorry, I shouldn't say I tested this team. I recreated this team based off the open team sheet myself. I don't know if they're exactly Darts, you know, spreads, but yeah, you know, it was good. I loved it. You know, I kind of broke down the team and how I did what I did with it. And you see here too, we do have that safety goggles raging bolt that we touched on earlier. But yeah, so it was really cool, guys. So yeah, go check that out. And I guess, look, if you're also going to go check it out, why not subscribe while you're down there, guys? Your boy is on the road to 3K subs. I was hoping to get there before the end of the year, but it is, it's a pretty tight race. But if you could help out, obviously, I would appreciate it. But anyway, going back to Ente here, I think there are two real main sets you can go for, right? One is the set Darts had there, which was an assault vest. And then I'll pull it up over here to, goddamn Ente. I also think the Choice Bandit set is also pretty nice. And I'm definitely, you know, there are definitely other sets you could probably go. But these are the two I've personally tested, and I both really enjoy them. So with the Assault Vest set, really with both sets, the moves your main moves here are Sacred Fire, right? So Sacred Fire is this mon's signature move. 100 base power, 95% accuracy with a 50% chance to burn. This move in a metagame that is incredibly physical is absolutely busted, right? Just the chance to burn anything on a switch in, potentially defensive terror in front of, say, like an Urshifu, and then just hit it with a Sacred Fire, burn it. It's insane. That you got so much value out of this, right? And then the other one is Extreme Speed. Extreme Speed is always just going to be a good move, especially if you're like a mon on an AV set, because it's just like 80 base power, plus 2 priority. It's really, really good. But you also pair that with its, ability here in a focus, basically meaning like, hey, you can't, flinch this mon with Fake Out. And it's also Intimidate immune. And what is, arguably the best one in the format? Incineroar. And it has, Fake Out and Intimidate. So because that inner focus is like really, really good. And they are really like the two main stab moves I'd say you want on this one, right? I also do think Stomping Tantrum makes a lot of sense. The inability to, well, I shouldn't say the inability, but like Sacred Fire, hits a lot of things, right? But, potential like rock types and whatnot, this helps cover for it. It also gives you a really good option as well, especially into things like, Raging Bolt, who obviously we just touched on, right? And then in the final slot, I do really like Snarl, because I think Assault Vest plus Snarl is like really, really good, especially for like Side Spam and stuff like that, or just Trick Room in general. If your team has a poor matchup into Trick Room, I do think Snarl is like super, super good. In terms of like the Terras too, I know a lot of people are running Terra Normal, and while I don't dislike Terra Normal, I do think it is a very good neutral type. It obviously gives you stab on to, the E-speeds. It also makes you pretty good into Flutter Mane, because Flutter Manes will normally, like, they don't want to Moonblast you, right? Because you're a fire type with Assault Vest, so they want to hit you with the Shadow Ball. But then you just go like Terra Normal, and then it's like, oh shit, well, now they can't actually hit you, especially if they're choice specs. So I do think Normal is like honestly pretty decent. But I'm a huge fan of either like, on an AV set going like Water or Grass. I think Grass just works super well with fire types, because now you resist, Water and Ground types, which I think is really good. Plus Water type is also just a super good defensive neutral typing, right? So they are like the two I kind of like to play around with a little bit. But yeah, again, it all comes down to like what your team needs and what you want to run. Normal is just a super good neutral typing, very similar to Water in that regard, right? In terms of EVs, this is relatively simple, I would say. It always comes down to how much damage you want this thing to do, right? So if its job is meant to just be a support and spam out Sacred Fires, something like 36 Adamant I think is completely fine. If you're running it with like Qian Pao like Darts did, I do think, going for like that, that final bump there at 196 is also really good, because you do want to get as much damage out of this one as possible. And honestly, you could even consider just going max, depending how you want to EV it, right? Also too, the speed stat is like not anything too crazy. I would say 126 is probably the bare minimum. Basically the 126 speed tier is something that people will go for, especially if they're running things like Icy Wind, because 126 will outspeed like a Flutter Mane at -1, for example. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. I do think that is like the modest and adamant Qian Pao Flutter Manes I'll quickly add. So, going somewhere between that 120, 126 to 128 range is good. And then from there, it really just comes down to like how much fast you want to go, right? If you want to run this thing really fast, I would say going up to like 137, 138 is pretty decent. If you got on a tailwind, even as fast as 140, but I definitely wouldn't go any faster than 140. And then from there, it really just comes down to how much you want to run, right? I'm pretty sure I was something like this, and I kind of just split the defenses, and then just, max out the HP. Really, the reason behind this is like, one, you've got the assault vest, so your special defense, weaknesses kind of like picked up for there. And then two, I think this mod really likes being paired with intimidate things, like obviously, not necessarily Incineroar, but obviously Landorus Therian's a big one. I also think Gyarados is like a kind of slept on one, but in saying that too, with the rise of Raging Bolt, it's probably just bad now. So that is definitely like one set you can go for there. If you wanted to, I do think like the 36 like super bulky is like fine as well. You can go like 36, maybe run that up to like 127. And then at that point, it kind of just allows you to like just start investing everywhere, right? You max out the HP, maybe you get this up to like 100 and just like pump into defense. Something like that also I think is like really, really solid. There isn't any real specific calcs I know of off the top of my head that you would want to, try to live on a Assault Vest Entei, at least not right now. I haven't done enough, testing with the team in particular. But yeah, so like going super bulky is also fine. Again, if you want to run that up to like 116, if you want a little more damage, still put into defense, still hit that 127 speed tier. And honestly, I think that would be pretty good. The Banded set though, this one is very, very similar. I would say on Banded, you either want fire or normal. And you're basically running like these exact same moves, right? So you're going Sacred Fire, god damn, I can't type apparently, and then Extreme Speed, right? Those two are like 100%. I think Stomping Tantrum is like also really, really solid. And let's just take a look at what other moves this mod can run, right? So Crunch is definitely very good. I have seen a lot of people run Crunch on it. Flame Charge is interesting, but I don't love it. Flare Blitz is, I was gonna say Flare Blitz is probably your best option for that final stab, depending on the team. But yeah, like Trailblaze, probably not. I do think it's probably Flare Blitz, and I think this mod is actually also paired really well in Sun with the Banded set, because like in Sun, Flare Blitz off like this is actually nutty, because you go for this, right? And I think on this kind of set, you could honestly look at just like a max. It really just comes down to how you want to play it, right? Because I definitely think like something like this here is like absolutely fine, especially if you're like on Sun plus Tailwind, even if you're running it next to like, a Qian Power, for example, and maybe you've got like a speed boost of Flutter Mane. But this set is like really, really cool. I think Banded like catches a lot of people off guard, because a lot of people don't expect it to deal so much damage, especially when you go like Banded Blitz. And people are kind of expecting like maybe like Assault Vest, Sacred Fire. It really just comes down to what ladder you're playing on. Are you playing the best of one close sheet? Are you playing on cart? Or are you playing like, best of three, ladder, or, a tournament with open team sheet, right? So yeah, these two are like really cool sets. As I said, Terra Normal also works here as well, because, Banded E-Speeds are really good. And I would say always, I think Entei really wants to be paired with Qian Pao. I think Qian Pao is another really good one right now. It has such a fantastic matchup into the metagame, especially too with the last two ones we touched on, right, being, Raging Bolt and Latias. It has a very good matchup into both of those. So definitely keep that in mind. The next one here we're going to touch on is actually one, that it holds a special place for my heart. I'm not going to lie, and that's Whimsicott. So Whimsicott does have a few sets it can run. I'm a huge fan of the Rocky Helmet set. I think it's really, really good, like bulky Rocky Helmet. Covet Cloak is definitely the most consistent though, in my opinion. You could also potentially look at Mental Herb, but I would not recommend it. I do think that either Covet Cloak and Rocky Helmet paired up with Terra Dark, honestly, is probably the way to go. I like Terra Dark because like it just means like, hey, if you do run up against Tornadoes that are faster than you, you can always go Terra Dark. It allows you to live any one attack, guarantee get up your Tailwind and go from there. In terms of like must-have moves, I do think Tailwind and Moonblast are the only two must-haves, right? 100% without a doubt. I think these are always, I have tested Energy Ball, go Moonblast. Moonblast is better. A fun fact too, if you are running this alongside Chi-Yu like I do, 20 attack here gives you a guaranteed KO with Moonblast onto Urshifus that don't Terra and have no bulk, which obviously isn't much, but this is, it's still an important calc to keep in mind. In terms of speed, I'll quickly touch on that as well. I think 165 is the bare minimum you would ever want to run on this mon. I think any slower than that is probably too slow, but if you really wanted, you could probably run that up to like 170 just to make sure you outspeed the base 100s, and also kind of put you in a range where the only Tornadoes that would be faster than you are max speed Tornadoes. And then from there, really, actually, we'll go back to here. Let's not talk about the EVs here. We'll go back to the EVs shortly. At this point, there is a lot of really cool moves, right? So I'm a massive fan of Fake Tears, right? I think Fake Tears is absolutely sick. Pairing this thing with like, Qian Pao, with Chi-Yu and Flutter Mane is awesome. It's also a really, really good partner for Raging Bolt as well, especially too because it also does offer Sunny Day support. I would say though, I have run these two moves together. Don't do it. As much as I love it and as good as the offense is, maybe I'm the issue here, but I do feel like you really do need another support move, and that is Encore. Encore feels so broken, especially when you're playing a hyper offensive team, because it really just means like, hey, if you ever click protect in front of me, you have to switch out or your mon is just stuck. And I've had a lot of in-game scenarios where I'll have like my Raging Bolt, for example, in front of like a Urshifu. They'll protect so they don't get thunderclapped, and then I just Encore them and they're stuck there for the rest of the game. I kill their friend and just the Urshifu just sits there just protecting. And yeah, it's really sad. Another really cool set as well actually is the beat up set. There are a bunch of ones you can pair this with. Annihilate is probably the best one. Terrakion is also like pretty decent. But yeah, that is just something to keep in mind. Really good at, you know, buffing up either 1, Rage Fist, or 2, Justified Brox, right? So that is definitely something to keep in mind. In terms of like the other status moves, like honestly, this mon does have a lot. Cotton Guard is really cool, getting that defense stat super high. Helping Hand is another option, but again, I feel like you're either going Fake Tears or Sun over this. You can always run Screens, which I don't think is great. Switcheroo is another option, but Taunt is probably the other real main option here. Charm as well could kind of be cool, I guess. But really, yeah, Taunt is like also just a really solid option as well. Like a set like this is really good, especially into like opposing, you know, Tornaduses and Whimsicotts. In terms of bulk, I think you just want to go max HP. I personally, I think, what was the calc I had? I think it was something like, I think mine was 65 and that. I'm pretty sure that was my set, my spread. And that basically just allows you to like live most neutral attacks. Like there are obviously going to be things like, you know, any, like this mon's so fragile that any super effective attack will take it out. But this should allow you to live any neutral attack. I forget exactly what it was calced for now. I kind of wish I wrote it down. But I think it helps you like live most flare blitzes from was it flare blitzes from Incin after an Intimidate or something like that, I want to say. I really wish I remember what the defensive calc was, but this is what I was running personally. And it was really good. I really enjoyed it. And I do think both Covet Cloak and Rocky Helmet work on this set as well. I guess I'll touch on the helmet set as well, because I do think you can actually opt to run this thing pretty slow. Like probably go to 45 would be like the bare minimum. But if you're going to do that as well, it kind of allows you to go for something like this, where you could just run a Bold Nature. And then at that point, probably just like pump like one here, and you probably call it a day. But this set, like I also think is pretty decent. And run that with like a Rocky Helmet. The other set too, though, does actually work fine with Rocky Helmet as well. But I haven't like tested Helmet as much as I have Covet Cloak, just because I like personally, I like knowing that if I lead Fluttermane plus this, it doesn't matter if you have Fake Out. I'm gonna Fake Tears, Moonblast, whatever I want. And that is like really good, especially into Trick Room settings. Like for example, Porygon 2 gets absolutely nuked by, you know, Fake Tears into like a Terra Fairy Moonblast. So that is something to keep in mind. And now, boys, to round it off, it wouldn't be a top 5 new mons list without Incineroar. I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of a hot take here. I actually do think Incineroar is probably not as good as people think it is. I definitely still think it is one of the, you know, top 2 to top 3 best mons in the game. But I personally do think Fluttermane is still better than this one. And again, that could just be my personal preference and the way I like to do it. But I do think there is enough counterplay into Incin these days that it's not as stupidly broken as it used to be. Clearly it's still good. If we go back to this tour and you have a look here, it still gets, you know, 57% usage, right? But the thing to keep in mind in here was it played, you know, it had 100 more losses than Fluttermane, and it had more play. Fluttermane had more wins than it with 100 less games, which is definitely something, you know, it's not the, you know, the be all end all, because obviously, you know, you don't know how many of these Incins were, you know, at the top and how many were at the bottom. But I will let you know this, in the top 8 for this event in particular, there was 2 Incins, one here and then one up here by Neil VGC. And then everyone bar one team here actually had a Fluttermane. The only one that didn't was this team here. You see Flutter, 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 and Flutter. So 7 Fluttermanes in the top 8, only 2 in the top 8. So something to keep in mind. But Incin, what does it do? Answer is a lot. This mon is actually just really good. Like I would say the 2 best sets are the Citrus Berry set or the Safety Goggles set. Now, as stupid as this may seem, I would say that Citrus Berry is a tournament item. Sorry, Safety Goggles is the tournament item. Citrus Berry is a ladder item. I feel like you never see Amoonguses on ladder, but they're everywhere in tournaments, and vice versa. So if you're like queuing on the like best of 1 ladder or best of 3 whatever ladder, go Citrus Berry. I think it's really good. If not, just go Safety Goggles, right? Yeah, Citrus Berry I think is fantastic. Intimidate, obviously one of the best abilities in the game. Terras, I do think there are a few you can run. Fairy's like super neutral because it helps obviously get rid of that fighting weakness. I'm personally a massive fan of Terra Water. I think water is just such a good neutral typing. And obviously, you know, it helps out with your weakness into, obviously, you know, what's it called? Opposing water types. And then the final one also that I think is really good is actually Terra Grass. Grass I think is nice because obviously, one, it gives you an immunity to to Spore, which Amoonguss can be, you know, this guy's like biggest hater, right? And then 2, also, it's just, again, a good defensive typing. It allows you to help take on things like, you know, the Landorus Therians, or sorry, the Landorus Incarnate's a bit better, even Landorus Therian as well. So yeah, they're both all really, really solid options. I would say, obviously, the one must-have item is, move is Fake Out. Flare Blitz and Knockoff are both really good, and probably should be on almost every set, but that is definitely debatable. I do think there are times where you could definitely drop, you know, one of them. For example, I do think Throat Chop as well here is actually, like, not too bad. In this slot, because if you run, like, say, a fast Incin, for example, it would allow you to stop opposing Incins from going for parting shots. While we're talking about this too, I should probably add, I think Assault Vest plus U-turn is also, like, a really good option. So yeah, if you're going, like, Assault Vest, go U-turn, because this one with pivoting is insane. Like, the ability to pivot your Fake Out and Intimidate, plus, like, getting chip or, like, parting shot, like, you know, reducing the enemy's output, I think is, like, really, really good. But this one also does actually get, like, other cool options. It gets Willow, obviously, right, which is, like, really, really good. It also gets Helping Hand now, which is actually kind of crazy. I have actually played against an Incin once that kind of just, like, wrecked me, because they just kept helping handing their Terra Water Scarf Urshifu, and it wasn't fun, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, there's a lot of different moves this mon can run, honestly. I do think this is probably your best set here, though. I'm just going to put it all in just so, you know, just for the general purposes here, especially with the EVs coming up, right? EVs for me are pretty simple. If you're running Citrus, go 200. If you're running anything else, go 202. The reason for this is that is just optimized for Citrus Berry. I don't like wasting my EVs, so, you know, losing out on like half a point of HP because the Citrus Berry feels pretty bad. If you're someone who likes damage, I do think going for something like this is absolutely fine. I do really like personally hitting that 156 number on my Incin. I feel like it is honestly really, really good. But there are like when it comes to Incin, there are a couple of like other good spreads, right? Like I know there's, I think there was one Brady was talking about where it was like, I think it was like 188, not Adamant, sorry, I think it's 188 Impish, was it? Impish? I think it's like this set here, like lives Urshifu Rapid Strike, I think. So something like that can be like really, really solid. There was also like another set too that I did think was like pretty cool. It was, I think 100, was it 100 here? Max that there, and then you go Calm, I think as well. Not Calm, sorry, it'd be Careful. This is like another really good set as well, because I think going a boosting Spadef nature is really good for Fluttermanes, because there are actually quite a lot of Fluttermane sets that can actually threaten one-shots on this. A lot of the time they do kind of rely on Terra Fairy, but if you kind of waste your Fake Out into a Fluttermane that doesn't Terra, Moonblast you does like, you know, 90%, and then their partner picks you up, that can be really bad for Incin. But yeah, so definitely having a set like this, I think can definitely work. The biggest question really comes down to like, one, do you want it to do much damage? Like, do you feel like you want that damage coming out of, you know, the Flare Blitz here? If you do, 36 is really, really good. I'm a huge fan of just hitting like basically these bumps here, right? I think it was something like that was what I was running. The other big question with Incin 2 is how fast do you want to run this? Because personally, I was running a set like this, and my Incin was actually getting outsped in some games, and it was kind of crazy because like it gets to a point where how much speed do you want to run on your Incin and then like still get outsped? And because of that, I did actually just start saying like, you know what, stuff it. I'm gonna run like 12 speed, maybe, you know, 20, and then at that point I'm just gonna sit there and basically pray like, hey, good luck to you. If you're running like 100 EVs in your speed on Incin, good luck. You win the speed tie, which honestly is not the worst thing, because I think like sure, losing the Fake Out war sucks. But also like winning the parting shot war is actually better, because if you parting shot an Incin that's faster than you, that also parting shots out that turn, then you know, it'll say, for example, parting shot you or your ally, and then whatever it switches into, which for the most part will be, you know, like a damage dealer, right? It, you know, you kind of want to use parting shot to get safely into like things like, you know, your own Fluttermanes. So because of that, you know, having parting shot and the parting shotting off the faster Incin can be very, very good. And I guess like part of me feels like I don't really need to go into this, but the guys Incin likes to play with, it's very simple. He likes to play with Rillaboom, you know, he likes to play with Urshifu. Honestly, I think the Palafin stuff is really good. People just aren't testing it enough, and unfortunately I'm not a balance player, so like it's hard for me. Maybe I'm just completely off because I don't play balance and I don't understand it to the same level some other players do, but I do think Palafin is also like really, really sick. Obviously Fluttermane and Incin are like best friends. They're the two best mons in the game right now. And yeah, because of that, they just work really, really well together. Yeah, anyway, guys, that's going to be my list for today. I don't want to go too much further into this because I feel like I've been rambling on enough already. But yeah, I guess let me know what you guys think below. You know, these are the 5 mons that are coming back into the game that I think are like really damn good. You know, I really think these mons are like some of the best mons in the game. So yeah, I am really curious to know what you guys, let me know what you guys think. Basically, did I miss anything as well? Like, I kind of mentioned Registeel earlier in the video. That's another really damn good mon. And look, there are plenty of other good ones too. Like, I actually saw a Blastoise have decent success. I think Venusaur maybe still a little underexplored, but probably not on the same level of these mons. Obviously you've got Latios, the cooler of the two Latis. But yeah, anyway guys, I've rambled on long enough. I'm gonna end it here. I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.